Pastor James is pastoring a great group of people, but there's just one problem. The building that they have is from the 1940s, and he is trying to convince them that aesthetics matter in this generation, and we need to improve the quality of our facilities. Now, they don't have a budget for a complete relocation or even a complete overhaul, but he is trying to scrape some money together so they might make the lobby and the opening spaces more receptive to visitors.
Aesthetics matter, but also security matters, because a church built in 1940s was not prepared for what is happening in our culture today.
Exactly.
So, yes, aesthetics do matter. That's important. But his greater situation is that he's got kids ministry. He has children that are just easily accessible by like one door. They don't have a couple of doors. They don't have security. They don't have lockdown. They don't have firewalls, all those sort of things. So that's his bigger problem.
Whether it's that plastic fake tree in the corner that has dust from 1968
that's
or
turned colors,
the fact that children are coming up the stairs who have no adult supervision, they both spark the same question. Is anybody paying attention? When someone's visiting a church, I think they're wondering, like, is anybody paying attention? And that's part of the trust factor of should we attend this church? And it can really be a deterrent.
I think a lot of times they are paying attention. I think pastors don't know what to do. They're not trained for that in seminary. And so it's kind of like, I'm just going to pretend this isn't a problem. And so, I mean, I think that was what was fun about this interview, is that we were talking with my two bosses at Visioneering about like little things that can be done to create big differences, and how there are architectural companies other than even Visioneering that are there to help church leaders know what to do with their spaces. Like they specifically work with churches only, because they know the special needs for them.
Well, John and Dave are two of my favorite people to hear talk about this topic, and it's such a relevant topic, as I will share in the interview. Pastors are asking me about this all the time. Mm-hmm. What do we do about our facility? So I hope this is helpful to you. I hope John and Dave give you some great tips on what you can do if you're stuck in that building that's just not working.
And one note is that this is recorded at the Southern Baptist Convention, so there's a little bit of background noise, a lot of energy in the room, but you may hear that.
Hey, everybody. We're here with our friends from Visioneering Studios. Introduce yourselves, guys.
I'm Dave Milam from Visioneering Studios.
John Parker, Visioneering Studios. I'm President CEO.
And I am the Vice President of Strategic Design.
Well, we are in the middle of a village that you guys helped design.
Yeah.
I know it was a collaborative effort between us and you guys, but I've had so many people come up to me and say, this is amazing. The intentionality, the thoughtfulness. And if I had to say two words about your company, those are the two words I would think of: intentionality and thoughtfulness. I love the system you guys have developed to help churches not just like build a building, but think about culture, to think about how it's going to affect the future. So thanks for being on the show. We want to talk about bad church buildings.
That's not totally
We've
it.
got no stories about that at all.
Lynley, tell us what you had envisioned.
Well, I mean, the beginning, did you say tell us how much time you have?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, there are a lot of bad buildings. You had talked at the last trustee meeting about how you met with all the pastors.
Yes.
And you said, what is one of your greatest challenges right now? And I think you said 9 out of 10 of them, 90% said our space, our building, and not just the decor, but how it's functioning, how it's even working properly or improperly. So that's kind of what spurred this on.
Let me tell that story real quick. I was with a group of pastors recently. They love Lifeway. I sat down to ask them questions about how Lifeway could better serve them. Yeah. Hey, what are you guys struggling with? What do you need? I was expecting to hear about Bibles or Bible studies, and they went to buildings.
Yeah.
They're like,
VBS curriculum.
Our building is killing me right now.
Yeah.
And a lot of it was just around stuff that they felt like was unchangeable. Like they just felt stuck.
Yeah.
And so I think there's a lot of pastors out there, pastors' wives are like, what are we going to do with this building? Or what could we do with a limited budget?
Yeah, I remember walking in and meeting with a pastor to talk about their building. And as I walked in, I saw him just standing there just like, I've got this huge problem that I don't know what to do with. And I don't even know where to start because my tiny little budget is not even going to touch this monumental problem that I have. So now what? It just is overwhelming for a lot of pastors. And they haven't been trained how to do it. Like seminary, they're super great on like theology and how to study the scriptures and even some leadership stuff. But when it comes to how do we navigate this building thing and how do we like fix it, it's like
so true.
Yeah, I don't know how to do it.
It's in the category of you'll figure it out.
Yeah, you'll bet the farm figuring this out.
Well, and I want to give credit to the seminaries. It's really hard to teach this because it's so contextual. Like,
Fair enough.
every church is going to have a unique set of problems.
Fair enough.
So, Lynley, what were some of the questions you had in mind in terms of like, what would you like them to talk about?
Well, earlier when we were talking about this, John, who is a former Disney Imagineer, was talking about how even at Disney you go through this phasing process and master planning. So it's not as overwhelming as churches might think because you can do like little pieces at a time. So talk about that just a little bit.
I think it is overwhelming if you try to see, like, I have to do it all now.
Yeah.
And even Disney doesn't plan a theme park or
Yeah.
anything all now. It's always this idea that we're never finished. And how can we continue to either build new attractions or in a church, add new space, renovate space, or just better have space that meets the needs of our people. And so that master plan process gives a roadmap of how we're going to get there and being able to kind of bite off pieces of that along the way. I mean, even just putting it in a personal sense, if you're looking at renovating the house, right, it would be overwhelming if you're like, I need to now renovate our entire house to meet our needs for the next 20 years, and we've got to do it all right now.
Yeah.
And it's overwhelming personally.
Yeah.
So, in a church setting, it's absolutely going to be overwhelming. So, being able to have that process go along, and what I've loved and seen in some of our projects that we've done is that the master plan happens, and then we do a phase one, sometimes very, very small little renovation or something.
Hey, let me back up for
Yeah.
a second. Explain what a master plan is, because
You explain.
no. Well, I mean, as someone who grew up in the church with their seminary, I don't know what that is.
Yeah, I never was exposed to that term.
Yeah, like from a building perspective, a master plan is like Stephen Covey would say, begin with the end in mind. So let's look and try to design what 15 years from now looks like, or when the vision that God's put in your head is actually achieved, what that looks like, and then we can back into that. So a lot of times a master plan is never intended to be done in one phase. It's actually intended to be done in 2, 3, 4 phases sometimes. And when a church actually comes to us and says, we love everything about this master plan, how much does it all cost? We're like, no. You're missing the point. This is a long-term plan that we can start hacking away at over the course of the next 10 years. And when you have that long-term plan, it helps you know what tiny bites or tiny steps you can take in order to get there,
We work with churches at times that didn't necessarily have that end goal in mind or a master plan for what the entire site or their campus may end up looking like. And it's challenging when we talk to them because they go, boy, we wish we would have done that earlier on, because now we have a building that's in the middle of where we should be doing something else. And it's like, you're not going to tear it down, you're not going to ruin, so you're trying to fix problems that you never intended. But with the master plan, what that end goal is going to be.
I feel like since we're at the Southern Baptist Convention, it's safe to say that every Baptist church that I've been on a project with you guys, it's like, here's your building A and building B and building D and building E, because they just keep adding to it instead of doing the master plan.
Yeah. What's funny, I met with this church in South Georgia, and I remember walking on their property, and they stood out front greeting me, and they were thinking about a master plan, and they were scratching their head, and I was like, so what brought you guys to the point of you need a full master plan? And they're like, well, funny enough, we needed a new playground, and we wanted to make sure we put it in the right spot. And I mean, it was just a $20,000 playground or $30,000 playground.
But if we put it there, we can't build a building there.
Yeah. Then what we have to do is we have to spend $20,000 in this playground, tear it up, put it somewhere else, and put the building where the building goes. They're like, we want to make sure that even when we do this playground, that it's in the right spot, that we don't have to tear it up next time we get to phase 2, because we don't even know what phase 2 is. So they're like, we need to master plan this whole thing. So we put the playground in the right spot, and that was a super smart move.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly.
Can we be crotchety pastors for a minute?
Oh.
So we'll just play the part of crotchety pastor, because there's a
I
few
love
out
this.
there.
You seem like you could do that well.
Yeah. I know a lot of them. And
you know a few of them?
They're going to come and say things to you like this.
Yeah.
I want to know what you guys would respond to.
Do you want an honest response?
We're not a mega church. We don't have money just sitting around. So we couldn't use you guys. We just use our own people. How do you respond to that?
A part of me is like, Dr. Phil, like, how's that going for you? Is that working out?
No, that actually is a good response.
I mean, because
a lot
you're
of
calling
times
me.
They're frustrated.
Yeah.
They don't know what to do, but they don't want to pretend that they have a lot of money.
Right.
So what do you say to that?
Well, I think that's why you do a master plan. Like, you do a master plan because you need to know what tiny little steps you can take to make a huge difference in your church. For example, it could be as simple as we don't have. I know hundreds of churches that we meet with. The number one problem they're dealing with is we've got this old Baptist church with a center hallway and classrooms on each side, but there's no kid security. We got to figure out how families can feel safe in our environment. And so help us do that. And it could be as simple when you have a master plan as just remove a couple walls and add some graphics. But it could be as complex as we need to move it to the other side or have a new building. And you need to know what the simple things are if you don't have a lot of money, and you can execute those things even on your own DIY style.
Yeah.
You know, you don't need to hire us necessarily to do all that, but
Just even some of the trends that are happening, churches that were built 20 years ago don't operate and function the same way as people are doing church today. And so we're finding people really want districting, and that's kind of a trend that we're doing. And so
Talk about that.
So districting is, this idea of having, your worship space, kids space, youth space, community space. So if you think of a bubble diagram, right?
or even adult education
an
space.
adult education space, not to leave out anything. But once you start to district it, if you've ever been to Disneyland, you use the Disney, it really actually psychologically starts helping you navigate a big space or even a small space.
Yeah.
It starts making the spaces feel like you already know what they're going to be a part of and what they're doing. And so so the districting just psychologically really helps and programmatically really helps. Old churches necessarily weren't, or older churches weren't necessarily in that districting style. They didn't have connection space. They might have mixed adult Bible study with children's and everything else because they're just filling up classrooms. And we're finding when we start districting, that really begins to start helping
That's
kind
good.
of current and functioning better for them as well.
That's good.
But when we talk about space, another thing, like when you invite guests over to your house for, a party, for dinner, I don't know about you all, but we're always cleaning up the house, making sure it's, spot on and it's prepped and everything else. We find that certainly churches are wanting to greet and be, great hosts, right? But they're not looking at their space and there's still the old silk plants, that are sitting there, or they just haven't done anything to really improve the space. So whether you're a mega church or a small church, it can just be as simple as, what am I doing to make the guest experience a little bit nicer, friendly, welcoming, besides the greeter.
One of the things Lynley and I talk about a lot, because we visit churches with Lifeway, often it's really hard to figure out, where to go.
Yeah.
Like, I pull in and I park, and I'm like, I have no idea if this is the right door. I'm here to see the pastor, but there's no clear signage for, where the church offices are. So one of the things I love about what you guys do, too, is it's not just about buildings, it's about wayfinding.
Yeah.
And helping people to be very clearly oriented on the campus.
To go deeper there, the reason we learned that was that in church planning in Colorado, where people sometimes feel awkward coming into a space, if they feel uncomfortable, if they can't find what they're doing quickly, they don't want to stay. Nobody likes to feel uncomfortable. So, you go into a space where in a grocery store or Target, and you can see the signs.
Yeah.
So churches that don't do that, you're almost automatically causing someone to feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you have a well-designed space, you take the tension level of the guest down a little bit. They feel like they can navigate it, and honestly, it feels more like home, because you know where everything is at your home. And so when I can look around and I'm in the lobby and I know where the kids are, the lobby is, the restroom, the coffee, I feel like this is a familiar place, which is what you want. You want your guests to feel familiar with your place.
So I've actually heard this. This is why I'm asking. So church member is in the audience at your base camps, which you can explain later, Dave, if you'd like. And they say, this is going to make us look like we only care about ourselves. If we put all this money into our church building, what about missions? What about, the sending people money that really need it. I personally have an argument about that, but I want to hear what you guys, how you would answer that.
Yeah, why don't we just give this money to missions, Dave?
I think that's what the disciples said to Jesus when the widow was pouring oil on her feet.
Oh,
we should just,
now you're going to Jesus juke us.
So
I
I'm
like
just,
it.
I mean, and Jesus is like, let's just do this. The sacrifice is worth it. But I really think that we're creating spaces that are going to impact generations to come. We're not just like caring about ourselves when we do this. Mm-hmm. We're caring about the legacies of people that are going to be left in our wake. So One Life Changes is changing an entire generational line.
Yeah.
And this is important.
Yeah.
This is super important. And what we do in helping design spaces, and honestly, I fight against this because I know that some of the get-her-done churches will say, well, I got an architect buddy who's, seen a church on the Hallmark Channel and he knows how to design them. And we've walked through those spaces where it seems like someone designed the church that they remember from the TV show, and it actually doesn't function as a space that connects people and creates community and discipleship. And so what we do is more than just buildings. It's creating environments where people's lives are eternally changed, And sure, a church isn't going to do that work for you, but it can prevent it from happening.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So if someone comes in, it's possible. I don't know if I'm answering your question.
Well,
I want to know your
and I
answer.
just feel,
What's your answer?
well, my thing is that missions is not always overseas. I mean, we have mission fields in our own backyard. And so to create a space that people feel comfortable coming into, that they're intrigued by, that somebody, I mean, we just look at it as so much from a Colorado standpoint. And so if there's something happening in a church space and people see that in the community, they're intrigued by it, they want to come in, well, that's missions. Yeah. So, it depends on your definition of it.
I was just going to say this idea of impacting generations. I know it's happened dozens of times, but there's been, and it just sticks in my mind, where we're in the process of finishing a project, and before the flooring goes down, the church will hold a time with the congregation that can come in, and in the children's room, they allow people to write a prayer for their son or daughter. And when I've had the ability to read some of those prayers, and it impacts lives. Those kids are going to come to know Christ in this space, and they're going to be forever impacted. Yeah. So, when you talk about a missions field, absolutely. But like you said, we're changing generations with what's happening in the space.
Yeah.
There's a famous missionary quote, "The light that shines the furthest shines the brightest at home." I do think there's an obligation we have to make our spaces attractive and beautiful to the people who are right there in our community so that we can grow a body of believers that cares about the world.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be expensive to be beautiful.
Right.
It doesn't have to be expensive to be beautiful. So there's ways to do it in a way that's not opulence.
In fact, it's about the same cost to design it ugly or design it beautiful.
It really is.
I think it's all about
you can pretty much choose
thoughtfulness and intentionality.
The red carpet and the beige carpet are the same cost.
They're the same price.
That's right.
They're the same price.
Here's the thing I would say to churches. We often don't know what our houses smell like because we live in them.
Oh.
Yeah.
So to try to design a space for yourself by yourself is excluding outside eyes that sometimes see things.
Yeah. You can't be your own lawyer, right?
Right.
Like
your own doctor.
Do that. Or your own doctor. You can't do that.
I just remember when we were designing the Lifeway space and bringing you guys in, you started asking some questions, and I'm like, why did we not think of that?
Huh.
That's a really good question.
What was the question?
I'm trying to think of what some of them were, but I just remember having that moment several times of like, had we not brought in Visioneering, we would have not even thought of that.
Yeah.
So I think there's a category of questions that don't come up unless you have outside eyes.
Yeah.
It's real powerful when you get a group of stakeholders together and some design professionals together, and they really start visioning and talking about space. And what comes out of that is never what any individual originally started out with. Even this space here that we're in today, I don't think anyone that walked in the room when we first started visioning it had thought, okay, this is it. I already got it finished, right? But getting together and really kind of that iron sharpening iron, especially with the design professionals, really allows for an outcome to happen that's beyond what anyone could have started out with.
I believe one of the biggest obstacles to a master plan is fear of the pastor and raising the money.
Really?
Oh, I don't think pastors have a passion. They didn't sign up to be fundraisers. They also know
They
that
didn't set up to make disciples? Is that what you're saying?
ministry in and of itself is busy and overwhelming. And like, why don't we just throw a massive project on top of that could divide the church?
Fair enough.
Particularly if you're talking about buildings where people have a lot of opinions. And there's different buildings in the church. I found like building a kids building is often very unifying.
Right.
Doing something with sanctuary is often very polarizing.
Right.
So having the courage to step into that tension and say, look, we have to do something. That's why I really love the base camp that you guys do.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about how you bring leaders together that are very diverse. It's not just a group of yes men or yes women.
Yeah, whenever we start, like the first step of any of our projects, like we start here, it's like where we begin. We bring about 30 people into the room, and it's leaders. It's like, imagine this, it's like a small little, like maybe youth room or something, and there's a bunch of round tables in the room, and maybe, 8 chairs around it, and then this room is filled with a diverse group of people. When I say diverse, I mean people who've been there for 50 years, and they, my grandma planted this church, and then somebody's been there like 3 months, and old, young, children's ministry, like a diverse group of people. And then we say, we start asking the questions, what are the challenges of the building, and when it's almost like a brainstorm session had a baby with a focus group, and there's a lot of collaboration, and when you get these people together and you start asking the right questions in the right ways, you start to see this vision start to emerge from the room. It's so amazing. It's almost as if God is speaking through the people, and it's really cool to see that happen. Well, you've been there, right? You've seen
when
it.
you get a group of people dreaming together,
oh my goodness, it's powerful.
And they're not trying to troubleshoot it yet.
Yeah.
Just like, what if we could?
Right.
That
Right.
brings this vibe into the room that's new.
Right.
I think I've been to several of these. The most special part of that is when you guys lead the group to remember the past in an honoring way. Because I think a lot of times pastors are afraid to bring people in.
That's good.
Because they're afraid you guys are going to be like, who did this? Like, why would you do this? And you do such a good job of saying the decisions made were the best decisions they had at this point.
Yeah, and the truth is, like, sometimes we're sitting in a mess of what feels like bad decisions from the past. But I can stand in a room filled with people and staring at the people who made these bad decisions and say, listen, every decision that was made at the time was the right decision. Nobody took a project 10 years ago and said, what I'm going to do? I'm going to frustrate the next 10 generations. You know what I'm saying?
I hope the next pastor hates me.
I'm going to tank this project. You just wait and see. People are going to hate me. No one did that. Like, they took the reins of leadership, probably regrettably, and said, I'm going to do my best. And they prayed about it, and they sought godly counsel, and they did their best. And we're staring what feels like a problem at somebody's best. Somebody prayed about it and worked hard. And yet we still have to dream about the next 10 years and figure out what that's going to look like,
I just think that's the moment in every base camp where they take a deep breath.
Yeah.
Because I think people come in with their boxing gloves on a little bit, like, we're going to defend this. And
Fair
then you
enough.
say, we're going to honor this. And they all just kind of collectively calm down a little bit. Like, oh, great. Like, we're just going to dream a little bit instead of fight.
I like the process as well. When normally the process in the industry is someone goes to an architect and says, these are all of our needs. We need children's space, we need whatever, right? Or if an architect shows up, they may ask, what do you need? And it's almost like a waitress. Okay, give me your order and I'll write it all down. That may not be the best plan, right? Because at that point, they're just writing down everything that you need. It may not be the most efficient, may be more space than you need, may cost more money, may not be phased or planned. And I like our process with Base Camp is it allows the team to really come together and collaborate on what's the best for all of us, rather than just, here's my order, take it and draw it.
Yeah.
Right? It allows for God and for the organization to do something much bigger than if you were to just come in and say, okay, I need, this is what I need.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So each of you, if you can, tell a short story of one of your most inspiring projects, like something you worked on, it came out so beautiful, and you're like, man, it's one of my favorite stories to tell.
Project up in Northern California, It was a church that had moved a couple different locations, finally bought a piece of property, and believe it or not, it is hard for a church to buy property and build on that property.
Yeah.
And if you're in that space, we'd love to help, work you through that. Anyways, they finally built their building, and as we were building it, they decided to do a time capsule on the front of the stage. I'll probably get emotional when I talk about this, but they asked everyone in the congregation to come up with at least 1 to 5 names to put in that time capsule for someone who doesn't know Christ. And went in the time capsule, got built, opening day happened and everything. We later got a story that came, a gentleman came forward and committed his life to Christ and asked, okay, tell us about, and he goes, my name's right there. That's when, I worked for Disney, okay, built fun attractions and everything else, but this is life-changing stuff.
Yeah.
It's really fun.
That's really great.
Yeah,
Those moments make it all worth it.
for sure.
Yeah. Try to top that, Dave.
Yeah, I'm not going to. I'm not going to. The first one that comes to mind is this church planter, and I think I have an affinity for church planters, and just south of Louisville came to me and said, hey, we bought this old roller rink that has been abandoned for 10 years, and we don't know what to do with it, but we feel like that can be our home. And so we went down there and we went in this old roller rink, and the ceiling's falling in, and it looks like there's been homeless people living there. I mean, it's just a mess. And it was one of those moments where it's like, I don't know how this can happen, but they were gritty, and they were like, we're going to work hard for the gospel, and we're going to make this building happen. We're going to figure it out. And so we master planned it, and they started just digging away at it, making changes. And now that church is meeting in this old roller rink that has been abandoned for years and years. And they did in the community with that building what they intend to do with the hearts of people, just restore and take what is old and make it new,
awesome.
And I love those stories time and time again where I see the transformation of space like that. It's just unbelievable.
There's 2 trends that I have heard you guys talk about a lot with churches, and one is outdoor space, and one is coming back around to adult education space versus off-site home groups, just, as safety and security has become more of an issue. So talk about that a little bit. I mean, are you guys seeing that, or are there other trends that you're seeing more?
So outdoor space, if you just even look in our commercial environments, right? There's not a lot of indoor malls being built. The space between buildings, irregardless of where you are in the country, the space between buildings is less expensive to build and develop than air conditioning building space, right? So outdoor space is a great opportunity to provide additional space at probably a quarter, a fifth, tenth of a cost of building a building. And it helps connect spaces. It helps allow for spaces to be able to grow. And so we do a lot of outdoor space. And, it can be sets where, people can gather. It's not just necessarily open lawn, but it could be a lawn that gets programmed for, kids play or things between services. It's just, it's allowing space to be used for people. And like I said, you see it in shopping centers and other developments. And so just even taking commercially what works and applying that to a church campus has been really beneficial for a lot.
If you think about the history of Sunday school, transforming into small groups, what you'll notice is somewhere around Willow Creek, when they had 20,000 people all of a sudden, I don't know if they invented the small group model. I think they were probably on the cusp of it, if not. But somewhere around there, there was this gravitational pull toward we're going to do home groups. And for Willow Creek, if you got 20,000 people coming on a Sunday morning, you're not going to have enough room for Sunday schools. It just doesn't make sense. So we got to put them somewhere else. So they figured it out. And so the entire church world, there was a gravitational pull toward small groups. The interesting thing is and I don't know if this happens for you, when I go from church to church to church, it's this pastor's secret that nobody talks about, that small groups really aren't working for our young families with kids. We all pretend they are, and we
At
all
home.
talk. Yeah, at home.
Yeah.
At home. we all pretend they are, and we're all talking about how great it's working, but secretly when you get in the back room, it's like, yeah, it's not really working. And so we've had a couple of churches, one in Nashville particularly, who's like, we're tired of pretending it's not working. And we're going to build small group environments on campus for our young families to meet, where they have quality childcare that have been vetted and screened. Not, my nephew in the basement with my kids, but vetted and screened childcare that's safe and secure, while I'm meeting on the block of time that are dedicated for Sunday morning.
Yeah.
So I can give 2 hours instead of 1, and now they've got small groups. And it's what seems very mind-blowing is we're going to do small groups on Sunday morning, which is the pendulum swinging right back to
Sunday school.
Okay, we're doing Sunday schools again. Yeah, but it really does make sense, especially like if you're retired, men's group, and you want to meet for breakfast at the diner, fine. But if you've got like rugrats running around and the 2-year-old screaming in the corner, you can't have a meaningful conversation.
You're
You
so
just
right.
can't.
Can I say a couple things on this?
Yeah, it's your
we
podcast.
learned this in Denver. We didn't have space so we had to do small groups.
Yeah.
The number of complaints about pets,
Yes.
like we're going to this person's house and they
Yes.
have 4 dogs. Complaints about it never starts and ends on time,
Yep.
which people don't want to complain about, but
Yep.
they don't really want to have a 2.5-hour small group every week. But in church, when you're on a church schedule, it has to start and end on time because the next service is letting out. There are a lot of things associated with small groups and homes that we didn't anticipate. The child care was the most difficult, for sure. You're trying to have a good discussion about the Bible, and the kids keep running in and out. Who's going to yell at them? Hey, we're having Bible study in here.
Yeah.
So I do think we're going to see a return to
Yeah.
a hybrid model,
A-
where
a s-
particularly for those families with small kids.
Especially when most churches, their mentality is we're capping our worship attendance, the number of seats in our auditorium at just above 1,000. So when you do that, and you're not planning for the 6,000 to 7,000 seat venue, you can start to support that with Sunday morning space, because it's scalable at that
Yeah.
point. But if you're like, we're prepping for the model that one day when we build 7,000 seats, we've got to go ahead and start doing small groups now.
Yeah.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
that's
I have had at least 3 pastors at the SPC ask me, what should I do with my sanctuary? It's way too big. The church had its heyday years ago. We're trying to regain momentum, but now we have 500 people in a sanctuary that holds 2,000. What do you do with this big building? What do you say to them?
Oh, it's a great opportunity, honestly.
How so? Because it doesn't sound like it to them.
Well, the opposite trouble is I'm out of space and I got to build brand new square footage.
Okay.
Right? And brand new square footage is always more expensive than renovating existing square footage. So the good news is to solve your problem, it's going to cost you less money than if you have to build something new.
Yeah.
So you're sitting in a really good spot.
So
honestly.
take some of that space, keep it for worship, and the rest of the space becomes more usable space.
It could be. It could be. Like each church is different. Do you have a slope floor? Is
Yeah.
there a balcony? All of the things. You got to figure that out. But to right size the auditorium for the number of people coming, and still have a long-term plan for if we grow. The good news is that space was already intended for something more. So we won't have to build a new sanctuary maybe
Yeah.
as we grow. But in the short term, we have to right size it so that it feels like things aren't,
Yes.
dying here,
John, would you add anything to that?
Nope.
I would just say this. The fear I have is let's close in the walls and make the space for the loudest person in the church.
Oh, yeah. Which is usually the most unhealthy person in the church.
So we need this space, they say, so let's close it in and let's make it that space. That's not master planning.
Right.
Master planning is let's get a group of leaders around and say, okay, if we had additional square footage, what would be the most important thing to build first? Rather than just responding to a few loud voices to say we need more space. So if you're out there and you feel stranded, you feel alone, maybe you're not into construction, it's just not your thing, it's not my thing, reach out. So how could people reach out if they need some help?
Let me just go on. It's
Okay.
totally doable. I've got this church in North Dakota, of all places, Fargo, North Dakota. They've got, I think, 3,000 seats, but they really only need 700, 800, 900 seats. And like with the balcony, and there was a pride in the church that we've got the biggest venue in North Dakota. Once a year, the governor hosts a thing here or whatever. And so there's a lot of pride there. But does it work on a Sunday morning, day-to-day basis? We got to figure that out. And shrinking it is going to give them the lobby they never had.
Yeah.
You know,
I
and I
agree.
don't say shrinking; I say right sizing. If you ever have to shrink your auditorium, you're right sizing it. You're not shrinking it, because that sounds like we're losing if you're shrinking. So, there you go.
If you're out there and that's your situation, I would encourage you to reach out
Yeah.
to Visioneering and get some consultation
Yeah.
going of just, hey, we'd love some ideas.
Yeah.
And don't do it alone.
Yeah.
Get some help and support. So anything else you guys want to say about Visioneering, how people can reach out to you?
Visioneering.com is our website, visioneering.com, and just reach out there, and we'd love to talk to you and spend an hour on Zoom looking at your site. That's what we do.
Guys, thanks so much, and thanks for helping us build this space and imagine this space. Our customers have just been
And your
over
building.
and over. And our building,
Yeah.
but today specifically, we're sitting in a space that was designed largely by Visioneering minds. So thank you, guys.
The Glass House is executive produced by Angie Elkins, edited and engineered by Donnie Gordon with help from Nathan Howard. Show notes and production help from Nikki Ogden. Photography by Emily Bergeron and Bailey Watley. Recorded at the Lifeway Podcast Studio in Brentwood, Tennessee.